My name is Lisa. It's been just about a year since I married my husband, Robert. We've been living happily together in a small, affordable apartment, dreaming of moving into a newly built detached house. Robert's parents live just a 5-minute walk away, but they seldom visit us. He once explained, "My mom doesn't want to meddle in our marriage, so she avoids visiting even though we live so close." Hearing this made me appreciate my mother-in-law even more. Many women worry about intrusive mothers-in-law after getting married, but it seemed I didn't have to. If anyone were to meddle with me, I know I would resist. My parents always told me, if someone picks on you, stand up to them twice as hard, then no one will bother you. However, it seemed unlikely I would have to deal with any conflicts with my mother-in-law, allowing me to live stress-free when it came to family relationships. After several years of working, our careers were going well, and we started having many conversations about buying the house. During this time, my parents, who had heard about our discussions, made us an attractive proposal. "We've always thought, if you two decided to build a house, we'd give you some of our land. Feel free to use it," they offered. My parents aren't rich, but thanks to a windfall my grandfather received a while ago, they had some very good land to pass on to us. When they discussed it with my grandfather, he said, "I've passed it on to you, so do as you please." When I told Robert about this, he said, "Let's take advantage of their generosity. I'll never be able to thank your parents enough. And your grandpa too, it's his land, after all." So we began discussing what kind of house we wanted to live in. We spent weekends visiting showrooms, touring our boss's impressive mansion, and talking to agents about new residences being built. Planning was often more fun than actually executing. But one day, a call from my mother-in-law shattered our happy life suddenly. Robert answered a call from his mother, and it seems she had somehow heard about our plans to build a new house. She said to Robert, "If you're going to build a house, how about making it a duplex so we can live together?" We were both stunned by her proposal. We hadn't imagined that my mother-in-law, who had seldom interfered in our lives, would want to live with us in a duplex. After a few seconds of silence, Robert made a non-committal response and continued to dodge the question. It's not surprising that he reacted this way. We hadn't considered the option of a duplex. We were planning to have a room for a future child, but if we were to make it a duplex, we'd have to replan everything from scratch. Yet, I worried that if we outright rejected the idea, our relationship with my mother-in-law would suffer. I was as perplexed as Robert. We had promised to have dinner at her place once a month, so we went for our family dinner. My mother-in-law continued the conversation from where we left off, even with Robert's brother, Mark, a single father, present. "Hey, have you given any thought to our conversation from the other day about the duplex? I think it's a really good idea. What do you think? Of course, we will contribute financially, and selling our place here should net a pretty penny. Besides, kids are going to come along eventually, right? Wouldn't it be helpful if we're right next door whenever there's trouble? Isn't it all upsides?" She started listing off the merits of a duplex rapidly. I tried to interject several times, but she didn't let me. Sure, she had a point. It would be nice to have help when a baby comes along, and the financial contribution was appealing. But I believed that my husband and I could handle any issues within her capacity to solve. Besides, it's better to rely on my own parents than to increase the chances of being bullied by her. Seeing my contemplative face, she continued, "Is it really that bad living with us? I mean, I thought you didn't hate us. But maybe I was wrong." She seemed to be playing the part of the sad victim, so I pretended not to hear and hurriedly left her house. She continued to bombard my husband daily with the same spiel, and I was starting to feel quite stressed. "What do you want to do, Robert?" I asked. "Living together isn't bad, I guess. It would be reassuring to have our parents around, but I don't want to lose our alone time either." After much thought, we decided to decline my mother-in-law's offer. We wanted to give priority to our own time. We decided to prioritize that. Surely if we explained properly, my mother-in-law would understand. The day of our monthly family dinner arrived, and we headed over to my mother-in-law's house to relay our decision. As we began to express our thoughts, she interrupted. "Oh, about the duplex, we've already moved forward with the plan." "Ha, what?" we both exclaimed. Before we could react further, she continued. "Oh, and Mark's moving in too. You know he's a single dad. It's tough, right? Let's help him out with the kid. Plus, getting some experience with children will be reassuring when you have your own, don't you think? You should definitely do that." We were so stunned by her words that we completely forgot why we had come. Seeing our silence as approval, my mother-in-law forged ahead with the duplex construction, consulting with my father-in-law and brother-in-law. Despite our attempts to convey our decision to our in-laws multiple times, they kept dismissing us with, "We're busy right now. Let's talk later. The plans for the duplex continued to move forward. Although the cost for the construction was covered by our in-laws, we were not only facing the reality of living with them but also with my single father-in-law, and we would have to help take care of his child. Just thinking about it was disheartening. My husband Robert resignedly said, "There's nothing we can do to stop it now. Let's just give up." Feeling it was futile to resist alone, we proceeded to finalize the blueprint and decide on interior elements like tiles and flooring. Normally, at this stage, we would have secured the funds, but the money my in-laws had promised for the multifamily house was nowhere to be seen. When Robert called his mother to ask her to transfer the funds, she responded, "Something came up, and I need money immediately. Could you cover it for me? I promise to pay you back in a month, okay?" Despite their inability to pay now, the project had already advanced, and it was impossible to cancel everything at this point. Robert and I could barely manage to cover the costs ourselves, but we didn't feel it was worth going to such lengths. My in-law's selfish behavior infuriated us both. "Hey, you talk about covering the cost like it's small change," Robert yelled at his mother. "Come on, she said she'd pay it back in a month. Has she ever lied to you?" Suddenly, my brother-in-law intervened. Surprised by his interjection, Robert agreed to wait a month for the payment and began waiting for his mother's transfer. The next day, I decided to consult with my parents about the situation. When I explained everything and wondered if we could put the plans on hold, they said, "We were going to give you that land anyway, and if they're promising to pay later, we'll cover the cost." "Really? Are you sure?" I asked. "Of course, dear. Your happiness is what matters to us. Don't give up on your dream house for the sake of this multifamily plan." "Thank you." I was so grateful that I teared up. My mom smirked and added, "Besides, if they're around all the time, it'll be hard for me to visit, and I want to hog all the grandkids to myself." With my parents' help, the construction proceeded as planned, and eventually, our dream home was completed. However, a month later, we still hadn't received any money from my mother-in-law. Meanwhile, they had started moving their belongings in before us. Strange, isn't it? A bit cramped for a duplex. Where's my room? Since they didn't transfer the money for the duplex, we hadn't built one. Naturally, there was no room for her, but she began moving her stuff into the room we had planned for our future children. To make matters worse, she invited her friends over for what she called a housewarming party and proudly showed them around. "It's our dream duplex. It's a bit small, but we have a wonderful garden. I can even plant a vegetable garden. Once the veggies are ready, I'll share some with you," she said, acting as if they had built the house with their own money. Her friends, unaware of the situation, complimented the house before leaving. After they moved in and things settled, 2 months passed and we still hadn't received any payment from my in-laws. Robert confronted them, but they just kept saying, "Soon, very soon." The situation didn't improve after 3 months or even half a year. Instead, my mother-in-law announced one day, "We decided not to sell our house. Instead, Mark and his kids will live there," clearly stating that she wouldn't pay us any money. But we weren't surprised. My husband and I had suspected all along that she likely had no intention of paying. "Oh, I just noticed that the house is a bit cramped when you two live there too. Can you guys move out? I have friends who occasionally want to stay over, and I want to be able to use the place freely. Doesn't that sound good?" she asked. Robert, taken aback, raised his voice slightly. "That's not the deal. Why should we have to leave our own house?" "Well, both of you are working, right? You're hardly ever home, and since you don't have any kids, it shouldn't be a problem. Besides, Lisa's family is wealthy, right? You can afford to build a new house." I was stunned by my mother-in-law's outrageous words, and Robert felt the same way. "First off, you haven't paid any of the expenses like you said you would. If you're not selling the house, it's clear you never intended to pay us from the beginning, right? What can I do? I decided to let Mark, who's a single father, live there. What's wrong with giving the house to my own son and his adorable children?" She began to get increasingly irritated, and it seemed unlikely that things would clear up. So we decided to discuss the matter privately that night in our bedroom. "If things continue like this, my mother and her family will definitely try to kick us out and take over the house." "Yeah, I suppose so," Robert agreed as he wrote down our plan. From the next day, my mother-in-law's attacks intensified. She started making nasty comments and harassing me daily. "If you don't want to be bullied as a daughter-in-law, you'd better move out quickly," she would say. It was clear that this was a classic mother-in-law versus daughter-in-law conflict, and experiencing it firsthand was proving to be more troublesome than I had imagined. When we were living in that small room, we barely interacted with her. Perhaps I was naive not to anticipate that things would turn out this way. However, being someone who believes in giving back as good as she gets, I decided to put a plan into action. A month later, Robert, my parents, my grandfather, and I devised a strategy. We decided to leave the house to carry out our plan. Robert told my mother-in-law, "We're moving out. You wanted to invite your friends over as you please, right? You'll be happier that way." The moment she heard that, her face lit up with joy. We decided to move to a newly built apartment we had been eyeing and went back to renting. "Reminds me of our newlywed days," I said with a smile. "Yeah, it does," Robert agreed as we settled into our peaceful new life. A week later, the phone rang. I overheard Robert saying, "I see, that's great. By when?" I was confident that our plan had worked. Indeed, the day after we devised our strategy with my parents and grandfather, we put our house up for sale. We found a buyer who wanted us to vacate in 3 weeks. While my mother-in-law was away, we allowed acquaintances, colleagues, and others to tour the house. Today's phone call was about one family who decided to buy. We arranged for 2 large trucks and coordinated with movers to quickly load our belongings and furniture. We carefully timed it for when my in-laws were supposed to be at a theme park in New York over the weekend with their grandsons. They were likely enjoying their time with a certain mouse mascot right about then. Since they said they would stay overnight, we saw it as our opportunity and prepared everything in advance. The move went off without a hitch, thanks to the professional movers, and was completed much faster than we expected. We waited in front of the house for their return. When my in-laws arrived that evening, they immediately noticed something was wrong. My mother-in-law, looking anxious, entered the house and screamed, "What is this? What happened? Where are all our things?" My father-in-law was also making a fuss. Robert and I calmly watched my in-laws from the outside. When they emerged, we revealed the truth. Robert said, "Everything is loaded onto these trucks. The destination is noted on a piece of paper stuck to the trucks, so please go there. It might be a bit small, but it's sufficient for the 2 of you, although it could get cramped if you invite friends over. Also, this house has already been sold. It's someone else's property now. Take care." My in-laws were flabbergasted. "What do you mean you put it up for sale? It was our house. We can't just—" "Our house," Robert interrupted. "The property was in Lisa's parents' name, and the house is in ours. We are the owners, so we have every right to sell it. And you dare say it's your house when you haven't paid a single dollar? You should be ashamed." Stunned by Robert's unexpected words, my in-laws fell silent. Their fussing abruptly stopped. Before we left, Robert added, "We've handled everything up to now, but you'll have to unload things yourselves. Surely you can manage that much, can't you?" "We don't have the money for that." "I'm sure you do," Robert shot back. "You've been selling things you stole from Lisa and depositing the money into your account. How did you know that?" "Does it matter? And you don't need to pay us back. Consider it severance pay. Use it however you like. And with that, we'll be off. I doubt we'll meet again." With that, Robert declared severance to his parents, took my hand, and we hurried home. We called our parents and grandparents to share the success of our plan, and they were thrilled. Additionally, my grandfather, knowing we were moving to an apartment, said, "Actually, I still have some land left. I'll give it to you, and I'll cover half the costs, so build a new house." And that's exactly what we did. Half a year later, we realized our dream of building a brand new single-family home. It's a bit removed from the city center, but the air is fresh, the neighbors are kind, and we're very happy. As for my in-laws, we don't know if they went to the address we provided. It seems they reached out to my parents asking for financial aid. They also apparently contacted Robert's brother, who is planning to remarry next year, to ask if they could live with him. He flatly refused because his new wife was planning to move in. My parents decisively turned them down as well, telling them not to involve our family anymore. Robert apologized to my parents for the trouble caused by his own parents, but they reassured him, saying, "From now on, we're your real parents. Feel free to rely on us as much as you want." They also recommended installing a home security system for added peace of mind. We've set up a system where they're instructed to turn away Robert's parents if they ever show up, and we've got a small, adorable guard dog in our yard. I highly doubt they'd have the courage to intrude. With this chapter behind us, we're looking forward to a new beginning. We'll focus on building a happy family in our new home and won't let anyone disrupt our peace. It's a promise we've made to ourselves, and we're committed to making it a reality.